5 long years he wore this watch.
It's a chopper,
Up his ass.
Oh, man, I shot Marvin in the face.
Why the fuck
Check out the big brain on Brad. What does Marcellus Wallace look like?
Hello, podcast listeners and YouTube watchers. Welcome to Cocktail Cinema, your favorite movie review podcast. I am your first favorite bartender, your third favorite author, Josh Price, and as always, I am joined by Greg and Shasti. What's up, boys?
Hey.
Today, we are going to be reviewing 1994's Pulp Fiction. This will be the final episode in our Robert Rodriguez and Quentin Tarantino Summer of Love.
Okay.
And if love means, massive violence and lots of swearing, So, for this project of massive violence and lots of swearing, we had a budget of $8 million. And it was a massive success at the box office, pulling back in almost $214 million for Miramax Films.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, huge hit.
Wow.
Huge hit.
8 million to 200 million.
Yeah.
And box office.
Yeah, this is a certified fresh success, my friend.
Third film.
Yeah, technically this is his second directorial film and his third writing credit.
Well.
So yeah. But Quentin Tarantino does not work in a vacuum. He's always got a great team around him and in front of the camera. Who did he have in front of the camera for this one, buddy?
We have Mr. Tim Roth again as Pumpkin, and Amanda Plummer as Honey Bunny. John Travolta, probably big money bags there.
Yeah.
As Vincent Vega. Samuel L. Jackson as Jules. Bruce Willis, Butch. Bing Rames as Marcellus Wallace. Roseanne Arquette as Jody. Eric Stoltz, Lance. Uma Thurman as Mia Wallace. Steve Buscemi and Christopher Walken make some cameo stuff. That's very interesting to talk about later. Kathy Griffin, Peter Green as Zed. Harvey Keitel, again, makes his presence known as the Wolf.
Mr. Wolf.
Well, he's part of the stable now, part of the Quentin Tarantino stable.
We've talked about it before, and we're going to talk about it a lot more.
Well, I mean, like the Coen brothers, he likes to work with a lot of the same people because they know they just flow together, and the people that he doesn't flow with don't show up again.
And the expectations are set.
You know what flows really well is this cocktail.
What is this? What is this thing?
So, for those of you who don't know, Cocktail Cinema is a show where we drink as well. So today, our adult beverage is the $5 milkshake.
Does it got any bourbon
I
in
need
it?
to know what a $5 milkshake tastes like.
So, no bourbon. I had to avoid the
Are there
bourbon
cooties,
just to spite
though?
him.
Are there
There's
cooties?
lots of cooties. There's lots of cooties.
Okay.
So we've got
You're gonna milk mustache?
an ounce of vanilla vodka. We have half an ounce of that dark rum cream that we were talking about a few weeks back. Half an ounce of Godiva mocha, and 2 to 3 scoops of ice cream. Throw that bad boy in the blender. Go to town. I also added a little bit of ice just to give it a little bit of body because it can thin out. It's a cream drink, but
Holy smokes.
that's a $5 milkshake.
That's a $5 milkshake.
That's a goddamn good
sure.
milkshake.
Wow.
I am the king of girly drinks, and ain't no shame in it. Sweet drinks will get you there just as well as a glass of scotch, and they're enjoyable.
Girls don't like scotch.
That's what I was telling myself.
Well, and if you're a fan of Kids in the Hall, you'll get the girl drunk reference. But
That's nice, Josh.
all that said, we've wet our whistles. Let's talk Pulp Fiction. So, like Greg said, this is the second directorial credit for Quentin Tarantino, and again, hot out of the gate here, he's doing a fantastic job.
Man.
With a much bigger set piece here. He's in a lot more locations than he was for Reservoir Dogs.
Given the space to grow a little bit on this one. He loves to start out with like that tone setter, that Tim Roth, Amanda Plummer scene. You know him as Pumpkin and Honey Bunny. Wow.
Yeah.
Right out of the gate. And then they're never touched again. So
Well, they do come back. So Shasti made a really good point off mic earlier that this movie's kind of bookended twice. So the very first audio sample you hear is Zed's motorcycle, right? So during the credits, the opening credits, you hear that motorcycle, and then at the end of the movie, you've got them driving off on Zed's motorcycle. The scene before all of that is the diner scene in both cases. And then before that, you're following the story arc for Vincent Vega and Jules. So it's chronologically out of order, But George Lucas probably had a wonderful day when he saw this because it all rhymes.
Well, I think it's not even that. I think it's just his universe that he's creating on a subconscious level almost, where he puts that same, it's like the famous Zed's Dead baby, and pulls off. Like once you see this movie twice, you hear that as the opening, like right before this scene, you hear that sample, the same motorcycle sample, just at a really quiet volume. And to me, it's just Quentin creating his universe. Like Zed's on duty. He's a cop. He's on his shift, or he's going to Spider's pawn shop. Yeah, he's finding a new gimp or whatever it may be. But it's kind of like one of those open-ending things that you see throughout this, just like much like the briefcase, an open-ending thing throughout the entire movie that is left for people like us to have fun and talk about. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And it also ties into the idea of Pulp Fiction. So there's two definitions you can follow here. The first is that pulp novels were either like crazy sci-fi, or they were schmutty, or it was something that wouldn't make a big press, so they printed it on pulp paper, which is like extra. It's like getting shake. You know, it's the extra stuff.
Yeah.
But the other thing is like pulp characters are the side characters in any movie. They're the henchmen or the people in the background. And he wanted to make a movie that combined both of those definitions, where he's like, I want to make something that wouldn't go to a major press. That's why it went to Miramax instead of like MGM,
right?
You know, and he also wanted to make something about those characters that are always on the fringe.
Yeah.
So the fact that we know from that motorcycle sound effect that Zed is out there, he's still functioning, he's still living his life. We just haven't met him yet.
And to add to that pulp effect, I character-wise, I feel like you're scraping the bellies of them all. You know, you're getting that pulp from every one of them, just like Tarantino's known for.
Oh, absolutely.
It's character bleed. You know, you're getting the pulp from every character. So much play on words come into this film.
Yeah, there's even, like you're saying, the whatever characters left over to tell the story for the next movie. Like that's told a couple times in this, even where Jules, when he quits and he wants to be like a nomad, a drifter.
Yeah.
Like in Kill Bill Volume 2, the church scene, he's playing the piano as Rufus.
Yeah.
As a drifter, like a name changed guy who's just like being a musician and changed life.
Well, and Tarantino always has that character, and it's a lot of it goes back to, so it's no secret that Quentin Tarantino is a big student of film, and he's a big fan of Kurosawa. Kurosawa is possibly the best known Japanese director. He's like the Seven Samurai guy.
Yeah.
So a big theme in Kurosawa movies, and by extension the westerns that were based on his movies, is the idea of the Ronin, or in American cinema, the Shane. So he's always got that drifter who's got to atone for their sins, and that's absolutely Jules in this movie. Like Jules, well, in the next movie. In this movie, we see the sins of the father, and then in the next, if there were another movie, you would see him being that Ronin character, floating from town to town and cleaning things up to atone for his sins.
Yeah, and it goes into play the way his writing style and his process goes down on paper or on film. He's not just dealing with two people. He's not just dealing with four people. They all intertwine. Like we've talked about this time and time again about Tarantino. You just catch that shit from him. You know, you have to expect the unexpected and expect it all to come back.
Well, and it's interesting that he went with ensemble films for his first two, because you would think for your first two movies, like you want to nail this, you want to hit it out of the park, you're going to keep the cast and the scripts tight as hell. But here, like for the first two movies, for Reservoir Dogs and then Pulp Fiction, he's got a large cast. And they may not all be main characters, but even his side characters have significant amounts of screen time. And to keep that all straight and to get it right,
Very rare.
is rare and incredibly commendable for his sophomore attempt.
Yeah. And to add on to what we were both talking about, this movie, we pre-show we talked about this, and this is the Butch show, right? Would we all?
Yeah, I mean,
would
you
we
make
kind
an
of all
argument
agree?
for that, or
Yeah.
Marcellus,
Yeah.
or that
Yes,
Vincent
with
and
Christopher
Jules.
Walken.
You know what I mean?
So I mean,
Especially with Reservoir Dogs, like Vic Vega,
Mm-hmm.
you know how he dies, and Vincent. You know what I mean? And how Tarantino said he wanted one of his 10 films. He wanted to do the Vega
Yeah, the
boys
Vega
or
brothers, yeah.
but it's
Yeah.
at that point, you know what I mean? Like,
Well, they're too old. Yeah.
they couldn't do a prequel.
Yeah.
You know, and look,
He
look
could.
the
It would
part.
just. It would
They would
have to
look
be a
old.
comedy, like on par with Wet Hot American Summer.
Yeah.
that would
But
be
you can make an
hilarious. I would
argument.
watch it.
You're right, though. You make an argument of those guys. I say Butch. It's just because in chronological order, you know, you have the diner scene starting it off, but really the first scene is when Butch is given the watch by
Yeah.
Colonel
Christopher Walken.
Yeah, Christopher
Yeah.
Walken.
That's tone, yeah.
Well, it's like one of those art pieces that's perspective based. So if you stand on this side of the movie, it's about Marcellus Wallace, and if you take a few steps over, it's about Butch, and if you go to the other side, it's about Jules and his personal journey.
But I think the only way to either we said you don't have to tell the story linearly, right? Like every story is a beginning, middle, and end. You don't have to tell it in that order. It's really hard, even for us, just to bounce around ideas and have that make sense. And it's hard to make it balanced at all.
Yeah.
But also being able to bring in all these character storylines together.
And that's where Q makes his living.
Yeah, I'm saying it's an unbelievable. Like Reservoir Dogs doesn't they go back in time and tell some stories about what you're seeing, but it's really like the amount of balance that takes place in this movie to me makes it next
100%,
level for
100%.
any movie maker to try to do something like that.
Yeah.
Well, and if you compare it to another movie that has kind of that non-linear storytelling, like Memento. Memento is really hard to follow. You have to watch it multiple times. You can watch Pulp Fiction once and know exactly what happened, and it comes down to the details and the cool little things that you watch back for the second time.
I might disagree with you on that point, just because I don't think that this is a movie that you can watch one time and understand.
I mean, I saw this
That's
movie when I
not
was-
that's not what it said.
Okay, I'm sorry, I misinterpreted.
I'm glad you said that, because I may have misspoke. So Memento or Donnie Darko, you have to watch at least twice just to know the plot.
At least
Pulp Fiction, you can watch front to back once and know the plot.
the plot, yes, but to
seeing this movie for the
realize
first time, I was like 11. You know what I mean? Like I didn't
realize
understand that. Go ahead. Sorry.
no, I'm sorry. I'm feeling very.
I didn't
very
expect
strongly.
this to be contentious. This is interesting.
Well, I think it's a downplay on his like genius in this film. I think that he separates on 2 to 3 to 4 storylines all the way through. Jules, Jules and Vince, one storyline. Honey Bunny and Pumpkin, another storyline. The combination between Bruce Willis and Fabian. Another storyline. There's like 5, and they're all 1 to 2 character. They're 2 character lines. There's
2 leads to every story.
There's 4 to 5 storylines going on in this between 2 people, and the only one that kind of leaks over is the Mia Wallace.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, that's the only one that bleeds over into the 2, and there's a huge problem with that, you know, because now, and it's funny that they bring it up during the movie. They say lines get skewed. Who'd you hear from? Them. Oh,
They have a lot to say.
They have a
don't
lot to say, and they call that out. It's like, that's why I think this movie is so genius, is because they rely on these 4 to 5 storylines that are all going the same way, but they bleed into another only on a few aspects, just like Bruce Willis and Marcellus Wallace. And
Well, that's the
And
genius
the-
of
and the
using.
carryover
I mean,
characters.
they to me they all bleed together, and that's where I was at initially on your side. And against what you were saying is like, yeah, I saw this movie when I was 11 when it first came out. Didn't put together like the chronological order, or even know movies were made like this, let alone like realize that, you know, the timing after the diner scene and the second diner scene, that's them still returning the briefcase back to Marcellus Wallace after Marvin's shot. That's still first half of the movie, even though you're in the second half. And
that's perfect. I mean,
Well, he does a really good
panning off with the
job.
gold watch and the timing.
no, I was gonna say that when Butch and Vic meet each other, and Vic calls him Palooka,
Yeah.
and calls him Punchy,
Yeah.
and is pretty much calling him a punching bag, and goes and hugs Marcellus.
Yeah,
and Butch leaves.
I really can't
The
fuck
next
with that
scene
guy.
is Vince going to pick up the dope from Lance
Yeah.
and saying that somebody keyed his car.
Yeah.
Tarantino acknowledged, like all these fan theories aside, he
was Butch.
acknowledged that it was Butch
Yeah.
king the Malibu.
I
Like
believe
that's how
yeah.
intertwined the stories are. I don't think it is just Mia is the only bleed over, because there's Marcella. There's literally Butch keying Vic's car, his Malibu, when he's going to meet up
I didn't
with
put that
Marcellus.
together. I
Yeah.
didn't put that
Marcellus
together
and
at all.
Jules. Marcellus calls Wolf to help Jules and the whole cavalry.
Mm-hmm.
Marcellus and Butch are left together at the end, tied, much like Butch's dad was as a prisoner of war with Christopher Walken.
Awesome. Yeah, that's what I think the
And-
whole beginning and end tie together right there.
Yeah.
And we were kind of giving the end
Well,
away
all of
right
the
there,
wires cross in this movie, so
Yeah.
don't be afraid to let wires cross in the
Right,
conversation.
And that's the whole thing. That's like,
Yeah.
it's still like the chronological order is it gives you that.
See, I watched this movie for the first time when I was maybe 13 or 14, and I think what helped me keep it together was seeing the costume changes. Oh, they look like the dorks. This goes along with that part of the movie. They're wearing suits. This goes with that part of the movie. He's wearing like Butch is wearing a white shirt for this. This goes with that. He's wearing his coat. It goes with that. And so the costumes and I think the color scheme in general indicates where in time you are, even though this is not linearly distributed.
Okay. And I remember going to, sorry to bring it back to my youth, but when I was 8 years old, I think, when this movie came out, and Blockbuster was still a thing, and the walls were riddled with like Pulp Fiction, and it was like big deal. I thought it was like a adult movie porn.
Yeah.
Like, because you got Uma Thurman like on a bed with her legs crossed in the back, and like, you know, that's what it came across as. It was like a big no, don't look at that kind of thing. I was like 8.
That is it does kind of almost have a, well, I guess that goes back to the pulpiness.
The pulp, yeah, exactly,
Yeah. It's almost it's risque.
Yeah. No. I just remember seeing that and be like, oh, I know I can't watch that. I don't want my mom to see me looking at that. You know, I'm trying to rent like Major Payne, or
Right.
something.
Yeah, no, it's and that is
I
probably
mean, it
the
had that
through
effect
line.
on me when I was a kid. So it's like, this is why I like just watching a late night. You
I
Like,
mean-
this is why people told me not to watch.
There's some serious scenes in this movie for sure that are like you don't want a kid to see, like the adrenaline shot to the heart, you
Which
know, that's
we
a-
should make a mention of. It was shot in reverse, right?
Yeah, he pulled the needle out because he couldn't smash her chest hard enough. So they just
Well, it was a risk. I mean, it is a collapsible needle, but if that
Still.
spring gets stuck, she's getting stabbed.
Yeah,
or
exactly.
even being punched in the chest at that.
Yeah.
stage.
Yeah.
You know? So
And it's one of the few times where Quentin didn't do the close up stunt himself. Like I think it's Kill Bill
Yeah.
where he chokes Uma Thurman like until she blacked out. He's like, no, it has to be me. Like I think part of him just got off on it, and the other part of him was like, I'm the only person the insurance will pay for if
Well,
I
for-
accidentally kill Uma
For,
Thurman.
for this one, much like we said with Reservoir Dogs, how he was going to be Mr. Pink, until he told Steve Buscemi, like, you're going to have to give me a performance good enough to wrangle this role for me because I'm such an egotistical. Early in my career, I need to be the only guy who gets. Regardless, he was going to play Lance.
Yeah.
And if you rewatch this movie and close your eyes any point during the time John Travolta's at Lance's house, it's Quentin Tarantino.
Yeah.
another iconic scene in this one, I thought, and right before this one was the dancing scene. You know, the big dance.
Well, everybody wants to dance like Uma Thurman. It's such an iconic moment that Fall Out Boy literally wrote a song about it.
Fall Out Boy did it. So that scene where Uma Thurman and John Travolta are dancing, you know,
Right.
she drags him to the restaurant, you know, because he's like aged out still.
This
And
ridiculously themed restaurant.
Yeah, and she's doing cocaine, he's doing heroin. It's like the total opposite and equal kind of thing. And we got ourselves a $5 shake.
milkshake.
But she
That
said,
is a tasty beverage.
I want that trophy. You know, so yeah.
The dance contest.
And then they cut,
The
and
dance scene is
It's based on something.
based on Band Apart
That's what it is. Yes. Yeah.
and 8.5. Like just the stylizing.
8.5 for sure. Right?
And
Yeah.
then, you know, the dancing. They said
And the framing.
Batman
even.
and Catwoman, essentially. But Yeah, a lot of similarities, a lot of throwbacks. I mean,
This
what the man does.
is a call out heavy film,
very, very, very.
especially the Mia Vincent storyline.
Yeah.
And for Tarantino to throw back to anybody because he's so inside himself, he's such an egomaniac, but he's got his fucking heroes, and he puts that.
Well, I think he calls back on his heroes a lot because I mean he didn't go to film school, but he worked. It's essentially he's the good ending to Be Kind Rewind. Instead of having to like make
What the
shitty
hell?
movies because he accidentally deleted them all,
That movie
he
was
went on to
rough.
make great movies
Yeah.
because he worked in a movie store, in a video store. Which, for those of you young enough not to know what Blockbuster was, you're lucky. But Blockbuster was amazing.
Yeah.
Used to be able to
Friday
go,
night pack,
used to
get
be able to
your
go rent a
Skittles.
whole PlayStation and shit.
Right.
You'd get what was it? It was 3 week-long movie rentals and 3-day game rentals.
Sometimes they always switched it up, and they
Yeah.
tried to get
Yeah, it depends.
new releases.
But
But
anyway.
only one day.
Anyway, so that's where Quentin got his start was kind of becoming a film buff the same way we have, just watching a lot of movies. And you can tell because he calls back these classic movies and these classic directors in every project that he does. You go back to even, and I know I'm getting off topic for this one, but you go back to Death Proof, and he's calling out Steven Spielberg's like first film. I think it's called Drive or Driver, but it's about I talked about that in the episode. He's talking about a truck driver who's killing people, or he's hunting somebody down. In this movie, he's going back to classics like Band Apart, and just did you catch that? Did you catch that? Did you catch that? And there's so many that you have to watch this movie multiple times. Yes, like I said, you can get the plot one run through, but it's all this stuff that you need to rewatch for.
Yeah, and I think it's important to watch them separately almost. It's like because there's so much going on in between every interaction. They're movies within movies. It's we're in the goddamn Inception here.
Yeah. Well, and almost
but-
literally a movie inside a movie.
And he's trying to call back time and place and this, that, and the other. And it's one of those things like everything's happening at one time. Boom, like a snapshot. This is life.
Yeah, and the whole
Everybody else's life.
like
Boom.
the whole premise outside of Marcellus's briefcase is the watch too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? After the story, when Butch gets the watch, he flashes forward to the fight. It's time.
Yeah.
There's constant callbacks to just like clocks in the pawn shop. Like there's 8 of them right
Yeah.
around where Butch has Marcellus on the ground before the infamous ending scene. But
Well, and even like you were pointing out off mic, like the lining up even the lyrics of a song that's playing with what's going on screen.
Yeah.
Referencing, I think you said it was Psycho when he
yeah.
comes across Marcellus Wallace at the stop sign.
I forget what song
And
he's playing
then-
there, but yeah, Tarantino does that for
He
for
links
all
up
his
the
flicks.
lyrics.
It's the same with we talked about Steelers Wheel playing for the cop
Yep.
torture scene for Reservoir Dogs.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And him picking if he couldn't get clearance for that, him picking Ballroom Blitz and us kind of guessing what line he would use because he's so
Meticulous.
yeah, and it's
So is it? He appreciates all arts. He's always.
He really
tried.
does. And it's why he's kind of a gunslinger auteur. He's not a real auteur. Like he's not weird like Nolan is.
right.
But
Kinda
he's
is,
got
though.
that like
Yeah.
devil may care personality that makes him just likable enough to want to work with. Like he's problematic and he could probably cut back on the N-word once or twice
Yeah.
But 162 times and
in Django. I think it's 162 times
like
in
that.
Django. But yeah, in this movie alone he says it like 8 times.
Yeah.
Personally.
Well, they say fuck 200. We're past 5. Yeah. Like 260 some times. And this one,
Yeah.
Reservoir Dog was like 5 less. Like they were both neck and neck.
Right there. And that's just like that part
Let's
of the
be fair.
dialogue.
Samuel L. Jackson is in this movie, so you have to add another
you
30
have to
years.
say that motherfucker is in this movie.
And it's dope that the bad motherfucker wallet was Tarantino's wallet.
Yeah.
The game before that. And it's also dope that like
Right.
8 years later, Samuel L. Jackson, because that's a Shaft reference, obviously. Bad motherfucker, he got the role for Shaft too.
Yeah.
Like
Oh, yeah.
he became Shaft
Yes,
from that,
he did.
from
Yes,
Q's
he
wallet.
did.
No, it's he's good at putting people where they belong.
And the ending for each one of these storylines that I was talking about earlier, they all had their own ending, which I thought was unique. Usually it's kind of a one big closure, lick the envelope and done. But he actually had endings for each one of these things, which it's hard to do when you capture so many storylines. Everybody has either big closure negative or big closure positive. And
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, and to not wrap it all up at once.
Yeah,
to
yeah.
have Jules disappear after the diner scene, and you know what happened because it leads into Marcellus Wallace going out for coffee and donuts into the next scene.
Right,
Or the next storyline.
Exactly.
But closing everybody out one by one. You close out Jules, then you close out Vince, then you close out the Butch story arc.
But you never disclose what's in the briefcase, and
Right.
that's what you once you start watching this movie 2 or 3 times, like Greg's saying, you start tying all these things together, and like I put together the chronological order. It's still like like you're right. There's a closed case, all the stories except the briefcase. Is the only thing that's not closed, and that's the one where Tarantino was like what I said about Butch keying Vic's car. You know what I mean? That was disclosed by that's a rare thing for like a writer to kind of disclose like that. That's not portrayed in the movie because they want to leave the mystery. But the briefcase,
it's on the editing floor.
Yeah, but the briefcase, he says like, yeah, there's nothing. You know what I mean? It's like a Guy Ritchie thing. He's like, no, it's for everybody to sit down and continue the story for.
Of course, the combination is
I heard
666.
him say once that the only thing in the briefcase is a piece of paper that says MacGuffin.
MacGuffin. Well, that's like
funny.
the mechanic.
Yeah.
It's called here. Let's look it up. It's called the MacGuffin. Is like
that's what it is.
Something that you don't
it's
see.
The only purpose for
Yeah.
a MacGuffin is to carry the story from scene to scene.
Yes. Nice.
But
I'm glad you brought that
the
up.
idea of a MacGuffin not technically existing.
But a paper that says MacGuffin and like 2 gold lights to the left and right.
And then
right.
an extra
Hey, is that
long-
what I think it
extra long
is?
cigarette.
Yep.
Like smoke, extra
So there's all
mirrors.
those theories that it's Marcellus Wallace's
It's-
soul, or
right,
the
right.
diamonds from Reservoir Dogs, or whatever. It's never going to be disclosed. The closest thing we have in recent cinema is the end of Inception, and even that's not a true MacGuffin situation. It's just a cliffhanger.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah,
That's a McFucking.
yeah, it's a McFucking. Actually, I think isn't that what you call when you
Nope.
take a McDonald's cheeseburger and put a McChicken on the
McGangbang?
inside?
That's a
McGangbang.
McGangbang. Yeah. Let's get the Urban Dictionary out.
What's a McFucking? Anyway,
I
this is a
digress.
bad rabbit trail. You know what? Since we're talking about McDonald's now, I guess it's time for us to talk about food since we're clearly hungry. For those of you who are just joining the show for the first time, Rotten Tomatoes got to tomatoes before we did, so we opened up a taco shop called Tacos.
Yeah, they beat us to the URL.
And
Shocking.
and we rate all of our movies out of 100 tacos. Systematically, Greg goes first because I like to put him on the spot. Greg, what do you rate
I've eaten
this
the most
movie?
tacos in my day. So I gotta I have to do this. I have to dive a little bit more. Josh, I'm sorry. Tim Roth and Amanda Plummer's opening scene sets the tone. You know what a fan of Tim Roth I am. Then you scoop in John Travolta, Samuel L. Jackson, Bruce Willis, Bing Rames. Like, these characters have never been played by better artists, I feel like. Steve Buscemi, Christopher Walken, you got cameos for days. The storyline is great, and it sets. You would think that this movie would be all over sitting at 2 hours. You need more time, but I'm giving this movie 91 tacos.
Really? Okay.
I think the placement of character and the arc of each one of them, and the storyline that moves and gets you out of your seat and linking up with the television screen or the movie screen. I don't think there's a better movie out there that is just like shock value with amazing chemistry on cast.
Oh, you've never seen The Room.
91 tacos. This is a
All right.
fantastic
All
film.
right. I can dig it.
You can catch it all.
I can dig it. Shasti, what's your take?
I'm going 92 tacos.
I need a higher score.
Yeah, higher score.
Okay, so I think those are the highest rated Tarantino movies you guys did this summer. Like for me, it was Reservoir Dogs. For both of you, it's this one.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
We didn't get together and
I think it's the next step of evolution for
Yeah,
Q.
exactly.
I think that, like we said, with all the characters from Reservoir Dogs, the Mr. Pink, Mr. Orange, the Mr. Color characters coming from his like childhood and playing with toys, I feel like this is the next level.
He's
of
given
wha-
that
of
room
what
to
we
grow.
love. Of what we love.
It literally expands.
And we
the
talked
universe.
about Harvey Keitel just busting up that or bumping up the funding for
Reservoir Dogs. Yeah,
like where he's at with this, like he was gonna have Daniel Day-Lewis play Vincent Vega, like
Which would have been a
arguably
disaster,
one of
by
the
the
great.
way.
I'm just saying, arguably one of like people would be like, oh, he at the time he's one of the greatest actors of all time. Like Travolta, it was kind of like people were looking at him like he was crazy. They were looking at him like, all right, we're gonna trust your genius and your judgment because you know what I mean.
Because
he was
Travolta
obsessed.
always played
He was
those
obsessed
aloof
with Blown
characters.
Away. That's one of his
Yeah.
Desert Island movies, like I was showing you before. You know what I mean? In 1980, Travolta hit that no one ever heard about. Pretty much got him Vincent Vega over Daniel Day-Lewis. It's just something where I feel like Q took so many leaps on his own, and after Reservoir Dogs, he was granted so much more. Like if people believed in him. In the beginning of Reservoir Dogs, when it was just a $30,000 budget, before it was $2 million.
Yeah.
Now it's like Miramax, right?
Yep.
So
This
it's
is a
like,
Miramax movie.
like I'm just saying, imagine how, like Reservoir Dogs. I'm gonna say how it could have been, but I'm just saying if he had millions and millions and millions more dollars to do his creative freedom,
And
I think
even
he was
this
able
is
to
not a
show
big
you.
budget.
Yeah, so
It's only $8
crushed it.
million.
They made $200 million
So
on box office. That's insane. bro.
chronological order and how he breaks everything down and how the diner scene is technically the center of the movie after Marcellus gets his
Yes.
briefcase back. And
Yeah.
the rest of it goes from when Butch is a kid to when Butch rides away on Zed's motorcycle. I think is beyond poetry.
I would agree.
For
I would agree.
And,
directing, for
and even on poetry, there's so many
screenwriting.
one-liners in this movie, like Zed, baby. You know, there's so much.
So it's like the
there's
timing
so much
and the
there.
balance that I keep talking about. I think it relates to the story of Butch's dad's watch, and I think the timing is just like an aspect that like you, if you can kind of fuck with that and play God with that,
Yeah.
like in creating a
Watch
movie,
It's
Real
masterfully done.
Yeah.
I don't disagree with you. I give this a solid 90. This is still a top 100 film, like of all time. I mean, it showcases what Tarantino can do with a little bit more money and just as much star power. I think Reservoir Dogs is better, but I do put this, like, the difference between these movies. Yeah, it's a 96 to a 90, but it's a CH difference. Honestly,
Yeah.
it's a few tweaks in Pulp Fiction that just didn't land with me personally. That mark the difference that would have made this the better
And that's
film.
why we do it. Everybody's different.
And I think recognizing that we all put this as a top tier film is important, because truthfully, this is a movie you cannot go through this life without seeing.
Right.
It will change your views on cinema and your understanding of linear time, and it opened up a lot of doors for not only these actors but Quentin himself.
And we talked about Reservoir Dogs being one of his launching pads. This one was truly his launching pad.
Yeah,
we
this
talked
is
about the budget.
this
versus
is his
drawback. Now
real step.
Now he made 200 million in one move.
Literal
Now
blockbuster.
he can
Yeah.
do any budget with any person he wants to, and people actually want to be in his films. Like he's calling people before. Now they're calling him. Like, hey man,
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna do this one. You know,
Yeah.
we'll get into that later, I think. But
Yeah, we'll do a director's cut on him, absolutely, him and Robbie. But that said, this episode rounds out our series for this summer on Robert Rodriguez and Quentin Tarantino.
Oh, man, it was
films.
so much fun. It's over
It was
already.
such a blast.
Jeez,
Yeah,
I
so
love you guys.
I think we got I think there's 6 episodes to this series. So if you want to hop back wherever you listen to your podcast, or if you're on the YouTube channel, just scroll down a little bit. Take a look at the other movies we've reviewed from them. We did both Grindhouse movies, Pulp Fiction, Reservoir Dogs. We did 4 Rooms. It was a great time. And if you liked this, definitely go back and check those out. If you liked it enough that you're like, hey, those guys deserve money, you need to go over to our Patreon at patreon.com/sippableopinions. There, for as little as $1, you can get everything you got for free and more.
Josh, you say $1.
$1.
All right.
You can give us more. It's okay. But for as little as $1 a month, you can get exclusive access to our show, The Sip, where typically we will take a historical event or talking point and give it a little bit of backstory and apply it to our day-to-day lives. You'll get early access to all of our shows and episodes. You'll get exclusive access to pilot episodes that never see the light of day. And you can talk to us directly there, and you can get some exclusive merch. We just teamed up with Patreon for their partnership program, so head on over and see what you can get. We will have an online store here soon. We're going to be revamping everything. We just changed over some of the logos and got some new designs that we're real excited about. I'm going to throw it on over to Greg himself to tell you about Director's Cut.
Something we've been working on exclusively within each other's hearts. We love it. We get to dive into directors that have changed the game in film, movies, picture, progress.
Absolutely.
Check it out. Obviously, we're doing maybe some Tarantino and Robert Rodriguez here in the future, so stick around. We got a lot of good things coming.
Absolutely. Another thing I'm very excited to point out is Shasti has some stuff to plug. Homeboy, what's going on with you?
We got some concerts coming up with a friend of the pod, More. More local hip hop musician.
First Fozcast guest.
Yeah. Andy's gonna be the next Fozcast guest too. So if you guys, anybody's in the Chicago suburbs area, on July 17th, playing in Woodstock at Ethereal, right by Liquid Blues there. August 13th at Brower House in Lombard, and the 21st at Fast and Loud Fest in Cambria, Wisconsin. Camping Fest.
Neighbor Wisco.
Excellent.
Yeah. Stay tuned for that though. We're gonna show some music.
Good stuff, man. Yeah. Good stuff. Folks, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Greg, Shasti, as always, thank you for being here. I couldn't do it without you.
Thanks, guys.
We talked about that on a SIP episode. You should head up to Patreon. For everybody, patrons and casual listeners, I'd like to say, I see you, I hear you, I love you, and we would all like to
I said, goddamn.
say bye.
It's a chopper, baby. Sid's dead, baby.